a lot of people, when they make goals, say, I want to reach partner this year. I want to stream to 50 people. But those are outcome-based goals. You can't really control whether or not 50 people tune into your stream. What you can do is put a lot of the right processes in place that then should hopefully increase the chances of you hitting that ultimate outcome-based goal. Welcome back to the Gaming Careers Podcast. We're here in 2021, the first episode of 2021. Not a whole load of industry news, but enough to be talking about. And then we're going to focus on a bit of a deeper dive, looking at some goals for the Gaming Careers channel and the podcast for 2021. And I'm sure Ben also has some goals for his channels in 2021. So Ben, Happy New Year. How you doing?
Yeah, man. Happy New Year to you too. Welcome back. I'm doing well. Excited to be back into finally free of 2020. I'm excited for all the podcasts we're going to do this year. Full year of podcasts, fingers crossed, which we'll talk about later, I'm sure. How you doing, man?
Yeah, very, very well. It was a bit of a nothing new year, as I'm sure most of the world was locked indoors with their significant others, or maybe even alone. So yeah, a bit of a weird new year, but we just crack on and hope that 2021 is going to eventually ease off with all the vaccines and things like that. But this isn't a podcast about coronavirus. We're meant to be covering the live streaming news. So we saw a few different things this week. We could probably start with Twitch experiencing some downtime. I think it was 2 or 3 consecutive days where Twitch chat wasn't connecting, or the actual Twitch platform itself wasn't connecting in various different places of the world. Did you experience this?
Yeah, unfortunately, I thought it was just me at first, but it seems like pretty much everybody was affected. I think 3 days in a row, Twitch either had some downtime or chat wasn't loading, website issues, which kind of makes sense because over the holidays, obviously people were at home, plus the pandemic and everything else happening. So there was obviously a lot of people on Twitch watching. But yeah, this definitely caused some issues and just some more concern for Twitch as a platform this year, especially with YouTube on the rise now. During this, I tried out YouTube because I couldn't stream on Twitch. So that was the first time I tried out a YouTube live stream, and that went pretty well. I know YouTube's had its own server issues in the past, but it hasn't really happened 3 days in a row to my knowledge before.
Yeah, I mean, a bit of a concern, I think, when a big website goes down, especially for that many days or that many hours in a row. So talk to us a little bit about your experience of live streaming to YouTube, because one of our New Year's resolutions, I guess, was to get a little bit more experience of YouTube live streaming and certainly Facebook live streaming, because neither of us have really experienced those, and then we can help relay that information onto our listeners. So tell us a bit about your first experience live streaming to YouTube instead of Twitch.
Yeah, I mean, I was really impressed by YouTube streaming. I know we've talked a little bit before about the chat experience can be better. I feel like that's the biggest issue right now, is it still felt a little bit dated or just maybe not so gamer focused with YouTube, which makes sense. But I was pretty impressed by how stable it was. I mean, I was holding like 9K bitrate very consistently on there, and I looked up some of the specifications. I didn't realize this. You can stream in 4K on YouTube at like 50,000 bitrate or something. Like, it's crazy to me, which I had no idea. And I was just really impressed by how smooth it was. I had no drop frames or anything. And it seemed like a pretty decent chat experience, like I said. I think it could probably be better. I know there's some concern around like the super chat experience versus how Twitch does their things and no emotes, that kind of thing. But I don't know. I kind of liked it. I might try out YouTube streaming from time to time again, just because I did like the experience. Have you ever done YouTube stream before?
I played with it when it was the very first announcement, but I guess the fact that I have such a big YouTube channel has made me a bit nervous to play around in the live streaming dashboard too much in case I go live accidentally. So yeah, definitely something that I want to try in 2021. Were you streaming to your personal YouTube channel or to the Lenovo channel for your work?
Yeah, that was just my personal. I really just did it as a test because I wanted to stream and Twitch was down, so I just killed an hour or so on there just to see what would happen. I deleted the bot afterward. But yeah, I mean, it's cool to being able to select your own thumbnail too. That goes out. I think personally, I like that feature for Twitch, and I think there could be some potential there, just for live streams in general, I mean. So I don't know. We'll see. Again, like you said, that's kind of one of our big hopes for 2021 as YouTube continues to break out. And I mean, we're already seeing that with a lot of big streamers blowing up last year, but I kind of see the appeal after trying out YouTube. I might have to try Facebook next.
Yeah, I think the bitrate point that you brought up, the fact that there's no soft or hard cap on the bitrate, because Twitch still really advises you not to go above like the 6K bitrate, and most people that can stream a little bit higher than that, certainly partners that get transcoding, usually do push like 7 or 8K bitrate. But yeah, YouTube up to 50 4K bitrate and 4K resolution. I think you'd need a monster PC to be able to push a 4K gaming stream where you're playing and live streaming. But certainly the NVIDIA NVENC encoder, that scales really well with resolution. So as streams eventually do move to 4K, and who knows how many years that is away, then you're probably going to see YouTube be the platform. We haven't seen Twitch really update those requirements for a while or increase the bitrate offerings that they have. So certainly if you're doing some live streaming which isn't focused on gameplay, you could definitely live stream 4K. If you've got a 4K input from a camera and that's just your full screen, then there's no reason why not. I don't know how many people are watching on a 4K capable monitor, but as we see more and more viewers come across to watching on TVs and things like that, then maybe that's going to become more and more of an option.
Yeah, I think for sure. And it's just kind of future-proofing the platform. I think to your point, I think I saw Ninja tweet out Twitch or something about upping the bitrate recently, and they just basically said it's too much for the servers, like we can't do that. But then I just had no idea that YouTube went so high. And like you said, a lot of people probably don't have 4K phones or anything to watch that content, but in my experience, if you stream at 4K or have a 4K signal, like I have the 4K camera that I use, even though I stream at 1920, you can tell a difference between 4K and 1920 on a regular 6K broadcast. So it's still just giving you more up room to make yourself stand out against people who are on YouTube, and really just bump up the bit rate. So I'm excited for that.
Yeah, I mean, with videos on YouTube, so the VOD format, it's worth upscaling your 1080p footage to 4K because YouTube's processing on the back end when you upload a video allows for a higher bit rate if it sees a 4K video than if it sees 1080p. So as long as your viewers are then selecting the 4K option, the video that they're looking at is a higher bit rate at 4K than it is at 1080p, even if the original footage was shot at 1080p. And that's been the case for a couple of years now. So, if you care enough about quality to upscale your 1080p footage to 4K or to record in 4K and upload in 4K, obviously you're dealing with bigger file sizes, so it's harder to edit and all those kind of things. But if you're just editing a 1080p video and then just when you choose to render it out, you scale it up to 4K, you actually technically get higher quality for the viewer as long as they're selecting the 4K option. If they're selecting 1080p on a 4K video, then it looks worse than 1080p on the 1080p video. I'm going down a bit of a rabbit hole here, but this is something that I've tested a lot, and I wonder if it's the same with live streams, if there's a different processing for 4K live streams than 1080p.
It probably is. I'm not sure. I just want to dispose the myth that you shouldn't stream in 4K because people can't notice, or at least use your camera in 4K. I can tell you from experience, you should use your camera in 4K if you can get away with it because it will look better. So it's cool to hear like these little things on YouTube and Twitch that are happening that we're sharing. Hopefully that's valuable to some people who might not know those things.
Yeah, what else did we see over the past week? I see that Epic Games, I don't know how relevant this really is to streaming, but it's certainly something that's really interesting, showing how much investment they're doing. But they bought a shopping mall quite close to you, right?
Yeah, it's actually really funny because I've been to this mall a couple times, but they bought a shopping mall here in North Carolina that has it's still open, but it's not really, malls across the country are not being used as much as they used to be, but this one especially has not really been super popular. So they have bought the location of a mall to serve as their new HQ. I think by 2024 is what I saw. So it'll be a couple of years, but first time I've heard of a game company buying a mall. Now I assume they won't use the mall as their HQ. They'll probably rebuild something else or top of it or adapt it or something, but just kind of crazy. I saw some really funny comments about, this is going to be their IRL battle royale for the next project. So we'll see if that happens, but it's just funny that it's right here where I live. And I'd never seen a mall before for a company. Did you have thoughts on this, seeing this come out?
Yeah, it's interesting to think what they're going to do. If it's an HQ, they're probably, like you say, they're going to repurpose the building and, use it as offices. But I saw some funny tweets as well of people saying the Fortnite merch store is going to be a whole mall now. But yeah, certainly good to see them investing still, even through quarantine. They're obviously seeing the purpose of buying somewhere and making sure that all their workers can work from there from 2024. So just great that it's so nearby you. You should be able to get some, Fortnite sponsored streams or whatever games Epic Games are making in 2024.
Yeah, I'll have to see if I can go by and check out the new HQ once it's done, finally. Speaking of other companies kind of blowing up, we had Discord recently hit a $7 billion valuation, which is pretty crazy. And this coming out of the latest funding round in December. There was a couple things that were quoted for why this happened. Among Us was a huge one, which Makes a lot of sense. I mean, we talked about how big Among Us was last year, but what we didn't talk about was how pretty much everyone is using Discord while they were playing Among Us. So it kind of makes sense that both Discord and Among Us did well last year. But then also, Discord made a big play last year to kind of move out of the gaming niche into students, the people who are learning remotely, as well as even like the workplace a little bit. I saw some stir on Twitter about this with business Discord potentially coming, maybe. So I think that's probably why this happened. I'm glad to see it because I love Discord as a company, and I think what they're doing is super unique, and more power to them with the valuation. Did you see this come out as well?
Yeah, I did. And it was kind of highlighted, like you said, again in the last few days, because as well as Twitch going down, Slack went down over the last few days. Slack, for those of you that don't know, is effectively like Discord, but it's really been built for startup businesses. So I think it was around before Discord was, but kind of a replacement for email and chat services that businesses were using. So prior to Microsoft Teams or Zoom or anything like that, Slack was and still is like one of the major players in that space, but went down again for a significant amount of time, and then saw a lot of tweets about when's Discord going to release a business client, with some additional features. And the Discord founder actually responded, I think, to Slash's tweet, basically saying, "Yeah, you can use Discord for business. We don't need to release a separate version called Discord Business, but there's obviously a use case for it." And yeah, like you say, I love Discord, and it's great to see it have so much success this year. I did find it a bit weird that a lot of the success was put down to like Among Us. You wouldn't think that it would be that way round, but especially with some of the mods. With Among Us, where you have proximity chat. I don't know if you've ever caught any of those live streams, but you can effectively turn on proximity chat where you can only hear people within a certain radius of where you are in Among Us. And I think that's a mod that's built to work with Discord. So things like that can definitely help, I guess, increase their valuation. But yeah, $7 billion. It's a crazy world that we live in now when a company that's so young can be worth that much money.
Yeah, we're hitting these crazy numbers that are just hard to process, with like the YouTube watch time that we had last year as well, being 100 million, billion, something like that.
You have to watch that video where I don't know if you ever watched one, but where they compare like 1 million grains of rice to 1 billion grains of rice, because it's such an unfathomable, I can't say that word now, help me out, unfathomable difference between 1 million and 1 billion, and $7 billion, or like 100 billion hours of watch time, I think it was, on YouTube that we covered the other week. Yeah, it's just, the numbers get so big, it's hard to really like know what they mean, I think.
Yeah, speaking of large numbers, this is my segue. We're getting good segues today. Steam last week on Christmas Day peaked at 23 million concurrent players, which I saw they put out a stat of, I guess that's one of their biggest biggest days of play each year, which makes sense. The last year was 9 million lower than that, like down by 15 million. So huge jump this year on Steam, people just playing games. And obviously is similar reasons that we talked about with Discord. People are at home. There was a quote from someone who did some research on this who said, the pandemic had a big impact, but also during off times too, it's just rising across the board. So not only are the peak times way higher, obviously, but even just historic low times for Steam have been really rising, which makes sense. Just across the board, last year we saw a ton of people playing games, watching games, talking in Discord. Just some more cool stats to share about 2020 looking forward.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to know how much of this 23 million concurrent players are people that would usually go to family for Christmas and couldn't, and then they're either alone or they were just in their normal house where there wasn't much to do other than play games with a few friends. So it's difficult to take these stats without knowing how much COVID has inflated them, because pretty much the whole gaming streaming industry has had an uplift in user base since COVID. It's like one of the few industries that's really seen massive uptake, which makes sense because people are at home and everything has to be done via the internet. So why wouldn't streaming benefit from that? But yeah, that's again, 23 million concurrent players, up nearly 9 million from last year. That's just insane. I think that kind of leads on to one of the games that's seen a lot of success really recently. We talked in last week's review about how Among Us and Fall Guys and even chess were like huge games on Twitch in 2020. But right from the start of 2021, we've seen Rust, which is a 7-year-old game, which still has had development in the last 7 years, but it's now finally crossed the 1 million concurrent viewers on Twitch, which is like a club that all games want to be in at some point. But yeah, incredibly popular at the moment. And again, we're seeing it's the big streamers playing together, which makes for entertaining viewing for all the viewers, and that kind of snowballs into more people playing the game as well.
Yeah, it's just super interesting because we were just talking, like you said, last week about Among Us and maybe predicting if that would happen for more games that weren't necessarily new or had some big update, but just sort of exploded thanks to a streamer, or in this case, many streamers just kind of deciding to play it, which is really interesting because I can't think of a lot of examples in the past couple of years where this has happened. Like even if you think of the top games with Fortnite and League and Apex, those are all new games or big updates or had always been popular games. But this is kind of the first time I think that we're seeing older games break out, like I said, without any big update or anything. It's really just because one streamer plays it and then another streamer plays it and the snowball effect. And so we're really starting to see how streamers can shape the popularity of games by themselves at this point, which is super cool. And I think it's a lot of the same people who played the Among Us stuff are moving over to Rust. So I'm curious to see how long Rust lasts, first of all, and second of all, like if there are more games that come out like this that there's no update, no big reason to play it. It's just somebody decided they want to play it, and then they bring all their other streamer friends on, and then suddenly it just kind of takes over Twitch. So I'm excited for this, and it's really kind of happening on the offline TV server, which makes sense. Again, a lot of big names on that server. So I don't know how long this will last. I've seen a little bit of people talking about stream sniping and things going on there, which I'm sure just adds to the hype of that game. But what did you think of seeing about this?
Well, we're seeing the power of collaboration, really. That's what's entertaining in these things. It's not necessarily all down to how fun the game is. It's how fun it is to watch your favorite online personalities interact in a different game. And similar to Among Us, there's like backstabbing and lying in Rust, and like I think that's one of the reasons that it's become so popular. So yeah, it shows how popular it is, or how powerful it is to collaborate with other creators. And when you have top creators collaborating, it's like the biggest of snowballs, isn't it? It's people that bring in millions of views anyway, over on YouTube and places like that, all collaborating together to just create this like huge, entertaining, like you said, the offline TV server where everybody's on it and everybody's watching their favorite creators interact with other creators that are also huge. But I'm sure that this filters down as well, and if you find people around your sort of level or friends that don't stream or anything, you could create some kind of collaboration opportunities where you're uploading content to YouTube or TikTok or Instagram or things like that, just making sure that you're making use of a game that is interactive like Rust.
Yeah, I think this is one of the best years for collaboration ever, because a couple things about these games, both Among Us and Rust, they're super multiplayer. So in Among Us, I think it was 10 people, but they had a limit go up for that, so you could have more than 10 people. Rust obviously is a ton of people that can be on there. And the thing, like you said, is it's really dependent on the social interactions and the content there. So you need other people to play with, and ideally streamers and content creators to play off of. So if you are, even if you're not in that top 1% streamer category, you could find your own group of people to kind of play that similar feel of other streamers and collaborators. So I think it's a really great time to do that. And that's probably a good way to predict what the next game would be if this trend continues, is some really multiplayer game that has a lot of social interaction and a lot of chance for people to come in and kind of play off each other in the content. So we'll see. I think we will see a couple more games like this, because I don't see Rust lasting. I don't know. Honestly, Among Us lasted longer than I thought it would, but Rust probably won't last too long, and I wouldn't be surprised if this whole crew, the offline TV and everybody else, moves to another game, and this trend just continues for a couple different months in 2021. Do you feel like the same, or what do you think?
Yeah, I do. I feel like the same. I think that there's probably just going to be a rotating set of games that big streamers make popular now. But I have a question for you. How do you, I'm speaking broadly here, but how do you as a smaller streamer deal with this? Because quite a lot of the advice that has been going out over the past 5 years of growing your stream is that you should stick to a game. You should really try and grow in that game, or at least a genre of game like FPS games or something like that. Try and grow a dedicated audience in that. But if you want to try and benefit from these games that are sort of viral hits, Among Us and now Rust and Fall Guys when that was out. Like, how do you balance those two? Because you don't want to just be chasing the popular game, because you want some kind of sustainability between the different content that you're putting out, so that people that come back to your stream aren't confused as to why you're playing a new game. But you also want to get on that hype train of banking all those views that are going on right now.
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, I think, like I said, this is kind of a breakout year for variety casters or just collaboration, because I can't think of a better year for collaboration in the past, because we had Fortnite and League, and these are super competitive games where those are the most popular games, and you can kind of play with other people, but it's mostly in the ranked experience or something, and not so bantery, more competitive. So this is the first year, I think, where you can probably move around in these popular games, because people come back for your interaction with other people, and that can be consistent across multiple games, even if you're jumping around, as long as you're the same person and they kind of see the interaction with other people consistently in each game. So that's what I would kind of think. I think you could probably still play Rust and Among Us and whatever game comes next after this, as long as you're entertaining. I think it kind of goes hand in hand with how just chatting is exploding on Twitch, as well as YouTube, just talking to people. That I think is kind of the core of streaming, and we're going to see more of that happen over the years. And so these kind of games just highlight that interaction more, because you're kind of just taking the just chatting experience and sharing it with other streamers in different games, where you're not really concerned about the competitiveness of the game per se, as much as the interaction with the chat and also other people playing the game. What do you think? Do you agree with that?
Yeah, I think I do. I think it's a difficult thing for new streamers, because especially people that haven't really even got like that 10 viewer threshold, where you have some regulars that are there for your personality. But that's the main thing that comes out for me, is that you have to attract people based on your personality now, not based on your gameplay. If you're going to try and chase these trends, obviously, if you're like an aim god and you slay people in any FPS game, then stick to FPS games. But if you want to chase these like popular games that are really only popular for 2 or 3 months at a time, or 6 months if you're Among Us, then it's all about your personality and the people that you're interacting and collaborating with. And that's got to be the reason that people come back to your stream each time.
Yeah, and like you said, it can be hard to grow when you don't have that initial base, and people don't know your personality yet. But because it's so easy to collaborate, I feel like it's easier than ever to jump into to streams with other people who are at the same level that you are. And then, if you get in 10 other people in an Among Us game or Rust, and they kind of see you in that streamer's stream, then I think it's pretty easy to get exposed pretty quickly in a different way to lots of different streams at once. And if you have a strong personality, then people will come follow you from that stream. So I think it's just a different method than it has been in the past for growing, but it's still as viable. And it's not so, like, in the past you didn't want to do that because you didn't want to take away from other people's streams, but now you're actually helping contribute to their content. So I don't think it'll be looked down as much as it was in the past.
I think another thing to maybe mention is, if you are just focused on one game, there's a game that you've been playing for ages, then I guess there is a slim chance now that game at some point does become the popular one. Like, Rust has been out for 7 years, and there's probably people that have been streaming Rust, creating content for Rust, guides and things on YouTube, that have benefited from this game becoming incredibly popular. One of the earlier episodes of the podcast I did, when I interviewed a popular Escape from Tarkov streamer, Pestily, that is exactly what happened to him. He was probably the number one Tarkov streamer, but streaming to less than 1,000 people for a long time. And then Tarkov implemented Twitch drops. The whole category blew up because of that. Loads of big streamers started streaming it, and he rode that wave, and is still, I think I saw last week that he had like 200,000 concurrents during a big Escape from Tarkov event. So, like, there is a good opportunity, if you're playing a game that you think has a chance to become really popular, that if you're putting out the content, grinding through, making guides like he was, that you can then ride that wave. And I'm sure that's happened on Rust. I just haven't done enough research to see if there were any streamers that have massively benefited, but I'd imagine almost definitely.
Yeah, I'm sure it's happening with Rust as well. I mean, that's always going to be a good way to grow. You can still grow just streaming one game and really becoming the expert in that game. I think that'll always be good, as long as it's not a dying game and there's no interest in it. But again, like Among Us, that game could suddenly get revived out of nowhere, and then suddenly you've got lots of people watching your stuff again. So I think it's always good to become an expert in a game if you want to, but now there's just different ways you can grow. Whether you want to be that person who only plays one game and knows everything, or if you want to jump around and be more of the character streamer or the interactive streamer, just different ways to do it now, which I think is great for people who want to have different options on Twitch, YouTube, and everything else these days.
Yeah, I wonder if there's an opportunity for just being like a general guide maker of whatever games are popular. Because maybe maybe your YouTube channel would struggle, but something like Instagram or TikTok, where things are much more based on like the likes and the virality of that, you could probably just, you know, create streamer tips on those games, you know, like how to create funny moments for your YouTube channel. If you play in this certain area and you snipe across to this certain area, like you can get cheeky kills and it can be funny on stream or something like that. I just wonder, I'm just trying to think of opportunities here for people that haven't really got much of a following yet as to how they can take advantage of these games going viral. But talking a little bit about viral, the last little bit of news that we have written down is that the search results for Twitch and for YouTube streaming, so for those two phrases, have hit all-time highs in the last month, which again is just kind of backing up what we've been saying about how massive this live streaming industry is becoming and how many more people are becoming interested in it. You know, if they're Google searching Twitch, then they probably don't know the URL is twitch.tv, or if they're Googling, you know, YouTube streaming, they're probably starting to look into, you know, how to do it. And so I think that's always a positive when you're making a podcast about live streaming, isn't it?
Yeah, it's really cool. I was just kind of looking this up the other day because I've been so embedded in the Twitch space for so long, and I think you probably have as well, that I wasn't sure if it was still kind of trending as high as it had been or if maybe the hype was falling off. And I knew 2020 had really inflated everything. But yeah, I mean, Twitch is definitely at the all-time search high, which is super exciting to see. So even if you feel like maybe it's hard to break out or your initial hype for Twitch is wearing off, that's not the case for everyone else. There's more people looking for Twitch than ever before, which is great if you're a streamer, as well as YouTube streaming. What's interesting is YouTube is not the case. Like, people searching for YouTube is trending down. That could be because people are just going to YouTube and already know what it is by this point, but still kind of interesting that streaming specifically is breaking out. I looked at Facebook too, and I couldn't find a good search term for Facebook streaming, to be fair, but that was not quite the same story as Twitch and YouTube. So just interesting. And again, I think it's just really encouraging if you are a streamer, just knowing that there's so many people looking for streaming content right now. It's a good place to be, especially going into 2021 if you want to kind of kickstart your content and find more people to watch your stuff.
And you don't know if that's down to like how Facebook advertises their live streaming. Like, they might call it Facebook Live, or, you know, like people might be searching just a variation on the term Facebook streaming, just depending on how it's marketed. But yeah, it's certainly positive. I would expect them to be going up, but when you actually see the results of how many more people are searching for these things, it's all positive. So let's go on to the meat of this podcast then. I think the goal setting for 2021, I publicly made my goals through a tweet for 2021, and I did that for a couple of reasons. I wanted firstly to show some examples of good goals, and by a good goal I mean you're not focusing on the outcome. So a lot of people, when they make goals, say, I want to reach partner this year, I want to stream to 50 people average this year, but those are outcome based goals. You can't really control whether or not 50 people tune into your stream. What you can do is put a lot of the right processes in place that then should hopefully increase the chances of you hitting that ultimate outcome-based goal. So instead of saying I want to hit 50 viewers, you could say I'm going to live stream 3 days a week on average for the next year. I'm going to upload 2 videos to YouTube, which are detailed guides on how to play a certain game, to YouTube this year. And those are goals that you can make because they have a number in them where you're saying two a week, and then hopefully they'll help you meet the outcome-based goal. So yeah, I was a bit unsure about why I should share them, but the main reason really was just to be held accountable. I thought if I tweeted this out to my audience, they are going to want me to hit these goals because they're mostly around content, and hopefully they hold me accountable for it.
Yeah, so you're preaching to the choir here. I love how you set the goals, and they're just to plug Pete's socials. They're on Twitter and Instagram. If you want to check them out, go see them. But they're all based on things that you can do. Like you said, it's not, reach this level of concurrent viewership or reach this partnership level. It's, I want to put out 50 podcast episodes. I want to make 40 videos. Those are things that you can do. And then whatever comes from that, that just is a byproduct of doing the habit, which I've been doing a lot of reading this year. And I'm a big fan of habit kind of goals like that, where you're just working on things like even read 10 minutes a day or things like that will create results that you want, versus actually shooting for, I want to get partner this year or something, because you can't make people come to your stream and watch you or follow you or those kind of things. So I'm kind of the same way. I didn't share mine publicly because I feel like in some of the research I've seen, if you share them publicly, you're less likely to do them. Now, I think that's different for you because you have a much bigger audience who will hold you accountable. And if you don't do those 50 podcast episodes, they're going to go, Pete, where are the podcasts, man? So I totally get that. But for myself, mine are more like put out one weekly video. So same kind of thing, one weekly podcast, same as you. And those are things that you can control. Same thing with stream on a schedule. Those are all in my top goals this year as well. So I think it's just important to share that because it's easy to feel like today, this is the year I want to get partner. Like it's going to happen this year, stuff like that. It's okay to want those things, but like to hold yourself to that as a goal is tough because like you said, you can't control that. So then if you don't get partner, you feel like you did something wrong when you might have put out all the streams that you need to and work out the content. But at the end of the day, you can't make people follow you or watch you or those kind of things. So I totally agree with that. I know you had some personal goals in there as well, but it's cool to see the ones around stream that you set this year.
Yeah, it's funny that you mentioned the reading one because one of my personal goals was like to read 10 books this year, and somebody replied saying like, is that really a goal? Like that's a book every 36 days. Like that's so easy to do. And it's embarrassing that I have to set that as a goal. I guess I'm an absolute sucker for social media in bed, and I should just leave my phone outside the room and not go to bed with browsing Twitter, because really reading a book is going to be way better for me. Especially I'm the same as you. I love reading like the goal-based books, like Atomic Habits is what I'm trying to get through at the start of this year, which is just fascinating, and it helps with all this goal setting kind of stuff.
Yep. That is a fantastic book. But one thing I do want to mention too is not to overshoot the goals in my experience. Like I did a lot of research on goals in the past, and you want to have like a stretch goal. But the thing is, don't set a goal for yourself that is super ambitious, and then you get a couple days into it and you're falling behind and you get really depressed and you're like, oh, I'll never hit partner if I'm at 2 viewers, right? Like it's never going to happen. Or I want to read 60 books, but I'm 10 pages in and it's February. Like if you set something more realistic, and that's why even like the time-based ones, like don't even set a quantity, just sit down to do something each day. Like I want to work on a video for 10 minutes a day and time myself. Even more than producing a video, I think just building the habit, like you said, just helps you do that thing more. And then eventually, like for working out at the gym, I've done that for so long so now that I just do it. I don't really have to think about it as much because I do it every day. I want to get to that point with reading and with editing and stuff like that too. So that's a big focus for me in 21 is the habit-based goals versus the outcome-based. I know we're getting a little nerdy on the goals here, but I love talking about this stuff.
No,
so
I think that's worth talking about. Just for context, people, when Ben says that he treats the gym, he doesn't have to consider it a goal anymore because it's built into his DNA. We start recording this podcast at 6:45 a.m. Ben's time, and he goes to the gym before that. So if that's not baked into your routine already, then I don't know what is. I struggle to get out of bed before 7 o'clock, and that's like when I just need to come downstairs to my studio. So yeah, definitely part of your DNA. So I talked about 6 different goals, and when you say stretch goals, I feel like one is the hardest one is my 40 quality educational videos. And I know a lot of people watching will think 40 videos, like less than one a week when it's your full-time job, like that should be easy. But if you look at my last 2 years when I've been full-time, I think I've done like an average of 20 educational videos a year, just because of the amount of work that I put into them. I really do pride myself on like the quality of the videos and the amount of research that goes into them and the script writing and all those kind of things. But the difference is this year, with being a part of the Nerd or Die team now, is I have a little bit of help with things like editing. So hopefully I'm going to be able to bump that number up. And 40, that's definitely the one when I wrote out being like, I might regret tweeting this out, if it comes to the end of 2021 and I've only released 20 videos. But I think it should be possible. And maybe I'm just on the January hype. I definitely should have checked with you before tweeting this out that we were going to do 50 podcast episodes because that's only giving us 2 weeks off. But obviously, if it comes to it, we can do some solo episodes, I'm sure, through the year if there's a need or an internet outage or anything like that, or a holiday. Remember holidays? Maybe we'll have some of them in 2021.
Yeah, those exist.
And a big one being the start live stream on a schedule, because it's funny that I have a channel all about live streaming and helping people live stream. Yeah, I haven't really ever live streamed on a schedule or any kind of regular interval. So yeah, that's something I'm really excited to do now that I've got the internet for it. I guess I just kind of have to make the decision as to the platform that I stream on and what I'm going to stream. I definitely want to do educational stuff, hanging out with a lot of the community, answering a lot of questions. But I'm half tempted to do it on YouTube, even though I'm technically a Twitch partner.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't blame you. YouTube is nice. You have to try it out at least, see what you think of it. But yeah, so first of all, podcast episodes, I'm all for 50. Let's do it, man. We're going to make it a habit, like I said, every week. Just get on and record a podcast. I'm all for it. I did have a question for you on the videos, actually. I was going to put you on the spot a little bit because my top thing this year is to work on videos as well. As someone who's done a lot of videos yourself, would you focus more on getting videos out consistently, like every week or so, just getting the habit of doing it? Or would you focus on doing fewer, higher quality videos for someone who's new to it?
Yeah, I mean, I probably am the opposite advice to what you typically see on YouTube. Typically, you see people saying, if you're trying to grow a YouTube channel, post consistently, like get something out every week if you can, on a consistent schedule so your viewers know when it's going live. And I've done the complete opposite. Like I've focused 100% on quality and 0% on quantity. Like really just tried to make videos that I know are going to be interesting for my audience or interesting for people searching when I was a really small channel. Well, I shouldn't just say it's me anymore because it's gaming careers. I've got a few people helping, but yeah, just really focusing on what I think were going to be popular videos, basically. So it's difficult because I'm trying to move towards the schedule side and whilst also keeping the quality very high. But I think it's difficult as you grow on YouTube, not to want to push yourself in that quality aspect, not to want to get better on camera, to get better quality, actual camera quality, audio quality, those kind of things. Research better topics. I think it's a really fine balance, and you can definitely succeed with either. And I think the previous advice was that you couldn't succeed if you didn't upload consecutive every single week, whereas I have shown there's been month-long gaps between videos for me when I've been working on a really big video, or like now when I've been moving house. So
right,
I think there's a balance and you can make either work, but from personal experience I've definitely found like really pouring your heart into the quality and making sure that you're putting out the best content ever has been what's resonated most with the audience and has what kept my channel growing really through like the last 3 or so years. I think one of the goals that I have written down here, which kind of ties into the quality educational videos, is to collaborate with 5 other creators, because that's something that I haven't been very good at, and something that a lot of people talk about. It's a great way to meet other creators, but also to kind of mix your audiences together and grow together. And it's definitely something that I want to try and do more in 2021. So whether that's through videos or bringing people on for podcasts or things like that, I would count me and you being a great collaboration from 2020. But other than that, and a few podcast guests, maybe I'd like to do some video collaborations, I feel like, in 2021.
Yeah, what we just talked about, it's the best year to do collaborations with everything going out. If you're into gaming, and I'm sure there's some ways you could do it around educational content too, but yeah, thanks for answering the video question. It's interesting to hear that because there's always a debate between quality and quantity, and I don't think there's a right answer per se. So it's cool to hear that side of it. I think a couple of weeks ago, maybe a month ago now, when we were talking about some of the YouTube changes that were coming up, we said that they kind of treat every single video individually. So that leans my thinking into it's more about quality than quantity, because every video from YouTube's point of view is treated individually and has a chance to be featured on homepage, featured in the sidebar. So it matters less, that you're posting regularly, and more that you're giving yourself more chances with quality videos to get featured in those places. Now, there's a debate as to whether you're trying to bring in new viewers from the homepage and the sidebar versus subscriptions, but YouTube's slowly been moving, I feel, away from subscriptions and more to just you being an amazing recommendation algorithm where you can just kind of visit the YouTube homepage and see like the 8 best videos for you on that day, versus having to go to your subscription feed. I'm old school. I still open up my subscription feed and like look at every single thumbnail and be like, do I want to watch that? Do I want to watch that? I feel like I'm giving all the YouTubers a fair chance for my view time. But I know a lot of people probably don't ever go to their subscription page anymore and just browse via typical YouTube homepage and then click on a video and then click on something suggested and then keep going like that. Yeah, the recommendation is huge these days. I feel like that's the kind of the core of YouTube at this point. And to your point, they are doing a better job of serving those videos just regardless of where you're at and not just being on a schedule all the time. I think there's something to be said for someone who's brand new to video making and maybe just needs to start getting in the routine, like I said, of making it a habit of working on that kind of thing. So like one thing for me that I struggle with is perfectionism and trying to get this perfect next video out, and it can't go out till it's just right. And eventually you just end up not making anything because you're so scared of making the perfect video. So I think I'm going to, at least to start with, focus on just getting some videos out, and then maybe as I go kind of dial back and work on making them a bit better once I have the reps in. That's just my personal thinking. Like with streaming, I think it's the kind of the same thing where I would always tell someone just to try streaming out first and don't worry about having all the gear and making it all perfect and everything, just to get the feel for it. And then slowly over time, you can iterate on that. I feel like that's maybe the same with video stuff, but I always want to get your side of that debate too.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely put myself in the same camp where I'm a perfectionist, and like I used to have a poster on my wall that said done is better than perfect, because the amount of time I would spend on like the last 10% of polish on a video would probably be better spent starting the next video and just releasing it, because not enough people notice. You know, we talk so much about video and audio quality, but like 50% of people are watching on a phone through their phone speakers. Like they can't hear the difference between, you know, a Blue Yeti and a Shure SM7B, like no chance on their phone speakers. There's no difference from their point of view. So yeah, that is definitely a balance. And it's one of those things where you do have to get the reps in to get good at it. And I've always treated myself as a perfectionist, but if I go back and look at my early videos from like 3.5, 4 years ago, they're awful. But I was a perfectionist back then, and I thought like, this is the best that I can do and this is what I'm going to put out. But if I look back, like I was bad on camera, the framing was bad, the lighting was bad, I was like too zoomed in, too close to the camera. There's just like so many things that I'm like, oh my God. And we're not even talking about the early videos. Even if I look back a year ago, the amount that I've learned in a year of just doing the reps of releasing a video every week, like I guarantee there isn't a single YouTuber who doesn't have some kind of cringe when they're watching back on their old content. Like that is just what's going to happen. So you might as well just release what the best that you can do is right now. And yeah, like a great goal, I think, for somebody that wants to grow on YouTube or wants to grow on Twitch through building a YouTube channel is to you know, do a video editing course or try and edit a video every single week, even if it's something that you don't release, but it's something that, you know, you're getting the experience of cutting and fading audio and using B-roll and color correcting and things like that. Like those are all great skills to know in 2021, whether you want to be a streamer, a YouTuber, or a content creator, or any of the above. Like it is about getting those reps in some editing software.
Yep, I totally agree. And that's what I'm personally working on this year, is getting the reps in, like you said, and making it a habit to work on that each week, so that hopefully, same thing as the gym, I'll just start doing it each week without thinking about it, and just build from there. But same thing I would say for streaming too, because we focused on YouTube a lot with this discussion, but if you are new to streaming, I think it's the same thing. Just kind of start with what you can and get your reps in, and eventually you get the feel for how you do it. I think one thing to talk about, just I know we're wrapping up here, but with streaming in particular too, is I think perfectionism less important with streaming, because having mistakes and having issues happen is a big part of streaming. So if you're new to streaming, just kind of embrace those things and learn to adapt, because that's just, every streamer goes through that kind of thing where there's issues with the internet and game capture and whatever else, and just being able to roll with that is part of it. So I think the sooner you can kind of get into that system, the better if you are a streamer.
Yeah, and you have less cringe content online if you're a streamer, because everyone's deleting their VODs now anyway.
That's right.
So yeah, you can't look back 5 years ago anymore and see how bad you were as a streamer. So you just get started and you know, drop some comments down on either mine or Ben's Twitter or YouTube channels with things that you want to learn, because definitely I think the focus for both of us is going to be creating content that viewers want in terms of growing their streaming and gaming careers and content creation, all those kind of things. But yeah, I think that's right. We've probably hit the 40-minute mark where we try and aim these episodes. But yeah, I think a really interesting discussion. Definitely interested to know that you have the same sort of goal mindset as me and you love reading books about it. So we'll definitely have more discussions about that in 2021. But yeah, let's hold us accountable. I'm going to read out my goals here so that podcast listeners don't have to follow me on Twitter and Instagram, but can still hold us accountable. So 40 quality educational videos, 50 podcast episodes. That is, I mean, that is two weeks off. We'll have to see.
We're going to do it, man. We got it.
Start live streaming on a schedule. Collaborate with 5 other creators. Attend TwitchCon. I mean, that one's completely out of my hands. If it goes ahead, I'll be there if I can travel from the UK, but who knows. And then share more of the highs, lows process behind the scenes. This is definitely something I want to focus on, because I think a lot of people have like this great view of how amazing it is to be a content creator, and I'm not going to complain, because it is amazing being able to do this full time. But I want to share some of the highs and as well as the lows of what that's like, and you know, do that through Instagram and Twitter. I know people don't care so much on YouTube, but if people choose to follow me on like a more personal platform, I want to share some more behind the scenes with them. So those are the goals. Ben, you had some, but you don't want them to be public, or you shared a couple
Yeah, I'll share them a little bit here. I don't, there's some study, like I said, about if you share some stuff, you're less likely to do it because people give you the dopamine hit of good job or whatever. But I want to focus. My big ones are trying to get one video out a week. I was really unsure about that, but I think I'm going to try to commit to it, as well as 2 days streaming per week. And I'm forgetting one more, a podcast each week, just like you said. So maybe
common goal there.
Yep. We got that one overlapping. So we'll be accountability partners for that one, I guess.
Let's try and remember for the last episode of 2021 when we're doing the recap, that we should revisit these goals as long as we've got kind of close. If we're like way off, then we'll just pretend that we forgot.
No, it's because it's easier for me because I haven't written them down. So
yeah, but I'm going to listen back to this episode beforehand and hold you accountable anyway.
Bring this soundbite.
Exactly. Yeah, that's a good idea. I'll bring the soundbite in from this episode. All right. Well, I think that'll probably do it for this week. Obviously, the usual calls to action. If you're watching on YouTube, do give the video a thumbs up. Share the channel. We're trying to grow this channel, obviously, so people can find out that the Gaming Careers channel has a podcast. And if you're listening on iTunes or any platform where you can leave a review. Is it iTunes anymore? I don't even think it's iTunes. Apple Podcasts, I think it's called. But anywhere that you can leave a review or share the podcast with a friend, we'd really, really appreciate that. It does make a massive difference to the podcast. So that'll be it from me and Ben this week, and we'll catch you again next Wednesday. Peace.